Hey everybody, welcome to The Other Side of Addiction. I'm your host, Al Richards, and we have our lovely, well, she's actually not the guest co-host today. She's actually the co-host today. So, Charity Fuller, thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us this morning.
Thanks for having me, Al. It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you're a big supporter of us, and we are so grateful for it.
I love this. This is so important. I'm excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, and isn't it cool a lot of the messages that we're getting on social media?
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that people are saying.
It's so inspiring.
It is, huh?
It is.
Yeah, sometimes I sit in my living room and I got tears going down my cheeks because I'm like, I just cannot believe this. So, yeah, it's great.
I've got chills as we speak.
I know,
now.
I'm getting
like
goosebumps as well. Yep. Hey, guys, we have a real special guest for you today. We have Dave Durocher from the Other Side Academy. Dave, thank you for taking time out of your day to spend with us. And you and I had a chance to meet just, 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I got to go to the Other Side Academy, check it out. Robin just filled me with a ton of information. You shared a lot of information. I tell you what, guys, this man here has an incredible story to tell. You've heard a lot of our other guests, have been homeless and different things happen in their life to come out on top, to choose to come out on top to where you're finally just tired of being sick and tired, as they say. Dave, just tell us a little bit more about yourself and let's get into this journey because holy crap, man, you have been on one hell of a journey.
Yeah. First, I want to thank both Charity and Al. Thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely.
It's an honor to be here and to be able to share my story. I don't think sharing my story is as important as sharing the story of redemption. I'm just fortunate to have come out the other side and survived my own bad decisions. It's not anything that happened to me. It's the things that I did to me that led me to this point. And I'm really fortunate and blessed to still be alive through everything that I did. So I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because when Robin sent me some videos that you have done, like on TED Talks and things like that, man, I was just, even when you first, and I don't want to spoil it, but when you pulled up a picture of a guy in a jumpsuit, and then as the story went, I'm like, holy crap, that was him?
Yeah.
So, why don't you just share a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and just kind of where life was taking you, and let's just go from there.
How much time do we have?
Well, Brad may have to leave, but we got plenty.
I guess the best way to really lay the foundation is just to kind of just tell my story.
Yeah.
I was born in Anaheim, California. I was raised in Cerritos, which is a small suburb of Los Angeles County. But I spent a lot of my teenage years and all of my adult years in Huntington Beach. That was kind of my stomping ground, Huntington Beach, Fountain Valley, Garden Grove, that whole, Southern California area. But anyway, born in Southern California, and mom and dad are still married today, 58 years.
Wow.
In spite of my best efforts to completely try to destroy that marriage. Now, I didn't realize it then what I was doing to them, but the fact that they made it through everything I put them through has to be a testament to their love, and I was just with them this past weekend, and it probably isn't love, they're just stuck together. I don't know. But it was, 58 years of marriage, in spite of the things I put them through. And, my story really began, do you guys remember Dennis the Menace?
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
That was me. I was a criminal before I was ever a drug addict. I was like 5 years old and I'd be stealing money from mom and dad. And mom would notice it missing and she'd come ask me about it. And I'd say, I didn't have it, Mom. I don't have it. I don't know what are you talking about? I'm 5 years old. I got this blonde hair, believe it or not. And look, just this cute little kid, right? And and she finally made me take my shoes off and there was the money. And I did all kinds of things like that. I was the kind of kid that at 5 or 6 years old, I'd go outside and play on the street, and I'd go to mailboxes and just steal mail out of mailboxes to see if there was any money, especially around Christmas time. I was that much of a criminal at that age.
Wow.
I would go into people's houses when the neighbors would leave, and I'd just go around their backyard, open up the gate, and see if the sliding glass door was open, and ransack their house. I was literally in prison before I ever was incarcerated. I'd be in restriction in my room for weeks on end. I'd be in restriction in my room for summers. My parents had no idea what to do with me. I was literally Dennis the Menace on steroids.
Oh my gosh.
So my criminal behavior started at a really young age. And then at around age 11, I was, my dad was a drinker. He drank a lot of beer and he had dirt bikes. And that was one of my loves as a kid, is riding dirt bikes. But he'd have his friends over all the time. And I'd run to the refrigerator, get a beer, bring it to him. And I'd pop the beer, take the first drink. And then at the end, I'd clean up all the beers and I'd take the last drink. And that's really where it started. And, back in the 70s, it really wasn't as frowned upon as it is now.
Correct.
It was wrong on every level, but nobody really realized the danger in that type of behavior. So at around 11 years old, I'd come home from school and I'd steal alcohol out of my dad's booze bottle. And I'd replace it with water, thinking he'll never notice. And after a while, he was drinking and not getting the desired effect, and he quickly realized I was. And I think I shared this with you, when we were at the facility, and that conversation didn't go well.
Right.
And I'm still not sure, and I'm afraid to ask him if he was mad that I was stealing his booze or mad that I was getting drunk and he wasn't. Someday I'll ask him the question, but, I was, again, in trouble for that kind of stuff, and Dad didn't know how to deal with me, and was sometimes verbally abusive and at times physically abusive. And as I look back on the kind of child I was, I don't know how I would have dealt with me either.
Yeah.
I won't make excuses for people because I don't make them for me. But, I don't know how else he would have dealt with me. There was a lot of verbal reprimands, and they weren't always the prettiest of things to say to a child.
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't wrong in the fact that that's what I was doing. But I started to believe the things that he was saying. I didn't realize it then. I didn't realize that when he's telling me I'm never going to amount to anything, I'm, this shitty kid, and I didn't realize it then, but those things were starting to sink in. And it wasn't long after that I started to live up to those expectations. So at 12 or 13, I'm smoking cigarettes, I'm still drinking, I'm sneaking alcohol, I'm, doing those kinds of things. And between the ages of 13 and 14, I did my first line of cocaine. When I did my first line of cocaine, I thought I found God, literally. I fell in love with it immediately.
Yeah.
Now, if you could imagine being a kid doing coke, that is not cheap. I stole everything you could possibly imagine from my family, from my parents, from my siblings, from neighbors. I was very good at talking people out of money, telling them I needed it for this gift or needed it for that, or my mom and dad. And I would manipulate people out of money to support my habit. And I was doing coke every day that I could. I was the kind of kid that would go to high school, and I'd pull my chapstick out right now to show it to you, but I'd go to high school with a vial of cocaine in my pocket. And I'd sit in the back of the class, and while the teacher was up at the front board, I'd take the vial and I'd pour the coke out in between the pages, whether it was history, math, or whatever class it was. Then I'd pull the Bic pen apart, and I'd lean over in class and snort coke. I
Holy
did this
cow.
in high school.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Could you imagine going through life like that? Now, Mom and Dad knew what was happening, and they were trying to intervene. They were trying to help. They were getting me counselors, then doctors and therapists. And when I was 16 years old, they sent me to a therapist, and his name was Mark. Now, I had my license at between 16 and 17, and my dealer was on the way. So I'd drive by the gas station, I'd pick up my coke, I'd do a few lines, I'd go to counseling, and the counselor would report back to my mom and dad how wonderful I was doing. It was in my pocket, I'm high in... So counselors and therapists never did me any good, and I'll get into more of that later about my opinion of that type of therapy. Mm-hmm. And remind me to ask the questions about that, because I think it's an important note to make. But anyway... did coke all the way through high school, and how I graduated is a mystery to me. I don't know how I was able to graduate. But when I did, I graduated from cocaine to methamphetamine. And that really is where the wheels fell off. And I was never the kind of guy that when I started doing meth that set out to be a drug dealer. That was never my intention. I never even thought about it. But I would buy some drugs. I'd buy a 16th, and I'd sell a couple quarter grams, and I'd buy another one, and just enough to support my habit.
Right.
And then I had a few people that would buy quarter grams, $25 here, $25 here, and it was just enough to buy the next 16th. And then pretty soon I'm buying 8 balls. And then it was quarter ounces, and then it was half ounces. And then I realized I had this entrepreneurial gene in me that I never realized I had. And unfortunately, I was using it for all the wrong reasons. And I started buying more, and pretty soon I'm buying larger amounts of drugs. And to protect myself, I've got weapons and I'm carrying guns. And as you could imagine, I'm starting to get arrested. And when I got arrested the first time, it was a large amount of methamphetamine, 2 loaded firearms. One of them had cop killers in it, and a lot of people won't know what that is, but it's a bullet with the top chopped off.
Oh, okay.
So it's got a flat top, and it looks like a dart coming through the center, and then it's Teflon coated, so when that dart hits the vest, it goes through the vest. So you can imagine the first time I got arrested with those weapons on me and those drugs, the cops didn't take it lightly. When they emptied that magazine, I took one of the hardest hits I've ever taken, and it damn near knocked me out. I was in handcuffs, but the cops took it personal. I don't know why they wouldn't have. I would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, that got me a 2-year prison term. I did my 2-year term. I got out. I stayed out for 59 days. Went back to prison for a 5-year term. Got out for 60 days. So at least I'm staying out longer. It was 59, then it was 60. I'm getting better at this.
Your steps are going further.
Right.
Yeah.
Stayed out for 59, then I stayed out for 60. So I'm getting good.
Yeah.
Did the 5-year term, got out, stayed out for 4 months, did a 6-year term, stayed out for 4 months, did a 10-year term. So it was a 2-year term, a 5-year term, a 6-year term, and a 10-year term, with very little time out in between those terms. I literally, the day I would get out of prison, I was on my way back. Literally the day I got out, I'm on my way back. Wouldn't go to parole, started getting high, started dealing again. But now I knew more people. Now I'm meeting more people. I'm in prison. I'm, starting to run the prison yards, and I'm, Orange County, and I'm meeting more people, and we're meeting on the outside, and my business is getting larger and larger and larger.
So even though you were in prison, you're still conducting business.
I was doing it in prison. I was having women come visit me in prison under aliases sometimes because they were on parole, bringing me stuff in prison. And you don't want to know how that transaction goes down. You got to visit. It's a woman. She's got to get it in somehow. Then I got to get it back on the yard somehow.
Get it.
You guys can do the math. So I was doing it in there as well. Nothing would change. Not that I should have expected prison to change anything. If it was going to change anything, it was going to make me worse, not better. And the way I try to explain what prison here in Utah, and I need to be careful how I say this. This is preschool. Prison in Utah is preschool. Go to California, where all the politics are at, where you have Sureños, Norteños, Bloods, Crips, white power, skinheads. Everybody's fighting for the yard, fighting for the drugs, fighting for power. I refer to prison in California as high school with knives. It's literally like that. It's every day. There are times that we're locked down for months on end. But prison really didn't scare me. It was exciting at times. And that's where I felt like I belonged. I had gotten to a point, I call it hedonistic adaptation. I got to a point where I had sunk to the lowest level and said, I'm okay here. This is where I belong. Prison is where I'm going to spend the rest of my life. This is where I fit in. I'm respected here. Every time I get back to prison, hey, Durocher's back on the yard. They send me over soups and coffee, and I had a juice card there. I was somebody on the inside.
Yeah.
Not that you could ever be anybody. I was nothing more than a scumbag. I mean, what a royal scumbag.
But you were at the top.
But I was at the top of the bottom, if you will. So prison became my second home. So after that 4th prison term, I got out. Same thing. Started dealing. Even larger amounts. I'm on parole. I'm at a house in Huntington Beach. I'm weighing up drugs. I look out the window, and there's a helicopter hovering. You saw the TED Talk, so I hate to repeat all this, but
no,
for the
because
listeners,
other people haven't heard it. Yeah,
right. So I'm looking out the window, and there's a helicopter really, really high in the sky. And usually helicopters are floating around the city, kind of patrolling the town, just way, way up there. It's just sitting there. And I'm done a couple hours later, and the helicopter's still sitting there. And I thought, there's no way. If they wanted me, they would have come to the house. It's just by coincidence the helicopter's up there for some reason. I leave the house in Huntington Beach, and I get in my car, and I leave, and the cops were everywhere. Huntington Beach PD, Fountain Valley, Garden Grove, parole. And I had told myself and many of my friends that I call them friends, we'll call them associates because you don't have friends in that world.
Okay.
That if I ever got red lighted again, I'm not stopping because I don't want to go to prison for the rest of my life. So I took them on a high-speed chase. At times it was high-speed, at other times it was not so high. And we're on Magnolia and Atlantic in Huntington Beach, and I'm trying to get to a bridge in Costa Mesa to throw everything out the window and into the water, and if they find it, they have to prove that's mine. That was my train of thought, and it might have worked. Had I made it there and threw everything out, they'd have to go down and find it and say that's what he threw. And that's where my head was at. I never made it to the bridge. I had wanton disregard for public safety. I was going through red lights. I was displacing cars to try to get away. That helicopter had come all the way down. It was shining its spotlight on my car. Made it very difficult to drive. The sirens were loud. The commands to pull over were loud. It was a very chaotic and hectic time. And I just kept going. And I got to an intersection at Magnolia and Atlantic, and I had a decision to make to go through that makeshift where the cops had parked in the middle of the street to block the intersection, or stop and let them arrest me. And I decided to go through that roadblock, and I was hoping they'd kill me. I did not want to go back to prison. If I use my car as a battering ram, if I go through those cop cars, they will shoot and kill me. That was my hope, and they didn't do it. I went through the cop cars. I made the left-hand turn, and the cop next to me did the pit maneuver and spun me out of control up on an embankment right there at Magnolia and Atlantic, and pulled me out of the vehicle at gunpoint and gave me one of the worst beatings of my life. The last thing I remember hearing was, stop, we're going to kill him. I'm on the ground, I'm handcuffed, they're beating. I don't know. I don't want to make excuses for law enforcement, but had I been chasing me, I probably would have dealt with me the same way. But that's what happened. They finally stopped beating me. They picked me up, put me in the back of the car. And when I came to in jail, I knew I was done for the rest of my life. And when I went to court for the first time, my first offer was 29 years.
Jeez.
That's humbling. And I was scared, and I was tired, and I realized that I had just lived most of my adult life in prison, and now I'm probably going back to die there. And I knew if I got any sentence even remotely close to that, that's probably where I'm going to end up dying, is going to be in prison. And when you have that big of a sentence, you're going to go to a 4-yard, you're going to be on a lifer yard, people don't care, it's going to be a lot of violence. It's just the way the California prison system is set up. And I fought my case for a long time in the county jail. I decided I'm not going to sign the deal. I'm just going to continue to fight my case and hope to get it down to something manageable. Now, a couple of the ancillary charges had fallen off. It went from 29 years down to 22, but it stayed at 22. And Judge Pacheco told me in no uncertain terms, Mr. Durocher, whether you go to trial or whether you cop a deal, you're getting 22 years. So why you keep coming back to court and why you keep postponing and why you keep doing these things is a mystery to me, because you're getting 22 years.
So it was set.
It was set.
Mind made up.
They were done, and I don't blame them. I would have been done with me too.
Yeah.
That was my max exposure. And when you keep going to prison in California for the same thing, you get enhancement, 3-year, 1 year prison prior, 1 year prison prior, 1 year prison prior. It all added up to 22 years. The sales and the transportation only carried 7 or 8 years, but all those enhancements got me to 22. So I fought my case for a long time, and I was hoping to get it down to something manageable like 15. I just kept pushing the envelope and kept getting the public defender to keep postponing and get me back in court to try to get it to 15. And if they would have given me 15 years, I wouldn't be here today, because I would have signed the deal. 2, 5, 6, 10, 15. It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But my life would have taken a completely different trajectory at that point. But the judge was steadfast in his resolve that he was not going to give me anything less than 22 years. But there's a place called Delancey Street. It's been around for 50 years now, started in 1971. There's 5 of them in the country: San Francisco, LA, New Mexico, North Carolina, and New York. 2-year program for people like myself, long-term drug addicts, particularly with the criminal component, which we know is a difficult population to help. I wrote them a letter, they interviewed me, they accepted me. I took that letter to the judge and he said, hell no. Mr. Durocher, I'm telling you again, I am not sending you to Delancey Street. You are not Delancey Street material. So naturally, I go back to my cell and I'm dejected. I'm tired, I'm scared, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is probably going to happen. I'm probably not going to get this time down. I'm probably going to get sentenced to 22 years. But what I did is, because I'm not really busy in my cell at night, there's not a lot to do, is I wrote that judge a letter. I finally decided to just sit down and I wrote him 4 pages front and back on a pad just like this. And I never once did I tell him he was wrong in his assessment of me, because he wasn't. He was spot on. But I said, Your Honor, what do you have to lose? I've been to prison 4 times. It's not working. Not that it's designed to. I get it.
Yeah.
But if you send me to Delancey Street, one of 2 things will happen. I'll either get kicked out or I'll split, and you can lock me up for the rest of my life. Or the next time you see me, it's because I'm coming back to say thank you. And, there was a lot more written in those 4 pages. But I went to court about 6 weeks later. And in California, again, it's a little different than Utah. I'm in a phone booth. Much smaller. It's just a metal cage, ankle irons, waist irons, handcuffs, orange jumpsuit. And I'm just sitting there, and the judge said, Mr. Durocher, against my better judgment, I'm going to give you the opportunity of a lifetime. Now, I was blown away. That my letter to him and many other letters must have pulled on the heartstrings, and he said, I'm going to give you the opportunity to go to Delancey Street against my better judgment. I don't think you'll make it. When you get kicked out or when you split, I've got you for the rest of your life. You're pleading guilty today to all of your charges, and you're signing a deal for 22 years. Now get the hell out of my courtroom. And he let me go. And 3 years later, when I was in Delancey Street, matter of fact, I almost didn't make it to Delancey Street. When I got out of Orange County Jail, I was at Theo Lacey. I had no idea there was a woman waiting for me. My mom and dad lived in Vegas. They drove all the way from Las Vegas to Orange County to pick me up to make sure I got from Orange County Jail to Delancey Street. They were at the hotel parking lot waiting for me to get released. I jump in the car of the girl that was there. I had no idea she was going to be there. I was actually waiting for my girlfriend to be there, right?
Yeah.
We go across the street to the parking lot. We read Bible verses. You guys can do the math. Then I go back to the jail, right in front of the jail, and there's Jennifer, and I jump in her car, and we take off. My mom and dad are still waiting. Hours go by. I haven't gotten high. I haven't drank. Nothing like that. But we're having fun. I decide to call my parents. And my mom was on the phone, and she was in hysterics. She was crying so loudly, and she was so mad. She was screaming at me on the phone that she knew where I was at. She knew who I was with. And if I don't get there, they're leaving. She says, you've got 15 minutes to get to your dad and I, or we're going back to Vegas. You're on your own. I had Jennifer drive me to my parents. I got in their truck. We went to Delancey Street, and I was I don't know, 7-8 hours late, and they didn't have to take me yet. They still did. And I'm very fortunate. And I don't know what really happened. I think I got to a point where I got out of jail and I was there and I knew I was going to start using again. I knew I was going to go on the run, and there was no coming back from this. And thankfully I made the call. Anyway, I got to Delancey Street. I had to stay 2 years. I had to stay 2 years in this re-education facility to get my life together. And I went there originally to beat a 22-year prison sentence.
That was your whole thought pattern,
course.
right? Just to get out of the
course.
prison. Yeah.
There was nothing else that would work. I'm getting 20. The only place they send people like me is Delancey Street if you can get interviewed and get accepted. And they interviewed me and they accepted me. And thankfully, I was able to convince the judge to give me the opportunity. And he finally acquiesced and he let me go. And when I got there, I had to stay 2 years. But at about a year and a half, I started to feel good about who I was. I started to realize that maybe I can live outside of jail and prison. Maybe I can live the way I'm living here in Delancey Street someday out there. But I knew I needed more time. And the beauty of the model is most programs are 30, 60, 90 days. And on day 30, 60, or 90, you have to leave. Delancey Street's 2 years, 730 days. However, you don't have to leave. That's the minimum stay. So I stayed. I asked to stay a third year. They said, yes, of course you can stay a third year. And during that third year, I started, at 2.5 years, I got some leadership roles, and I was in charge of a large group of younger students. And I really started to feel good about who I was, to be able to mentor, to be able to coach, to be able to influence, to be able to help others get from where I was to where I had gotten. And then I had to go to Vatican again to give a commitment, and I said, I'll stay one more. And the gentleman in the Vatican said, what do you mean one more year? I thought you were in this for the long haul. I said, what do you mean long haul? I've been here for 3 years. I'm staying a fourth. They talked me into 2 more. I said, I'll stay.
Wow.
And then Mimi Silbert, the president of the Delancey Street, came down from San Francisco, and we had a meeting. And we were sitting in a room, not unlike this one, at a board meeting. And she said, Dave, how much longer will you stay? I said, I don't know, Mimi. I'm here for another 2 years. She says, that's not what I'm asking you. I go, what are you asking me? She goes, how much longer will you stay? I said, I don't know. I'll finish my commitment. She said, will you stay 5 more years? And I was like stunned when she asked that question. And I go, from when? My last commitment? Or from, she said, from today. And it's hard to say no to Mimi. You have to know her. She's 5 foot tall. She's a firecracker. She has been running Delancey Street almost since its inception and has changed thousands of people's lives through the model there. And I thought about my life, how bad it was, how good it is today, what I'm doing, how good I feel. And I said, absolutely, Mimi, I'll stay. I did not know why she was asking me to stay, but I said, yeah, I'll stay. She says, are you sure? I says, are you? You asked me. I said, okay. Right. Yeah, I'm sure. I'll stay. So I stayed 5 more years. I ended up staying in Delancey Street for 5.5 years, or 8.5 years. The last 5 years that I was there, I managed the LA facility. The LA facility had anywhere from 200 to 250 residents living on property at any given time. 15 vocational training schools that generated all of the revenue because we didn't take any money from the government. City, county, state, federal, nothing. We generate all of our own revenue. That's the beauty of that model, is you don't have to leave on a particular day because the funding's run out. And we're going to get to that. Remind me to get to that piece too because it's really important.
The funding part of it.
The funding part of it.
Okay.
Excuse me. So I stayed 8.5 years. And then in 2014, I decided I wanted to leave Delancey Street and go out there in the real world and practice what I had been doing for the past 8.5 years. And I got a job in Southern California for a gentleman by the name of Bob Burkich in Burkich Construction. And I had got my commercial license while I was at Delancey Street. So I'm hauling heavy equipment. He started me at almost $30 an hour. So here's a guy that had been out of the workforce since the 80s. Not that I was ever really in the workforce, but I had some jobs. Right, I had had some jobs, but nothing to speak of. So I'd been out of the workforce for decades. And I was starting at a $30, $28.50 or something like that. And I thought, holy cow, I'm making prevailing wages. I've got my commercial license. And I loved going to work, but I hated my job. Literally, I did not like construction. It's not what I want to do. I don't want to dig holes, put pipeline in streets, and haul the heavy equipment. And then things started to slow down for Burkich Construction. And I went up to the Dakotas because some Delancey Street graduates were up there in the Bakken. And the Bakken up there is where they're doing the fracking, and we were making stupid money. So a couple of my friends are sending me copies of their paychecks, and I'm like, holy shit, that's legal?
Yeah.
Right? Really? I'm on my way. So I left Burkich Construction. I went up to the Bakken into the oil fields, and I refer to it as stupid money. I was making... my first month there, I'd worked 31 days in a row. I slept on an air mattress in my buddy's apartment before he bought a house, and I made $17,000 in 1 month. As a hot oiler.
Wow.
And all that money went in the bank. And then month 2, and then month 3, and then month 4. And I realized 2 things. Making money is fun. legally, right? And this time the cops can't take it. So everything I'm putting in the bank is mine.
You don't have to look over your shoulder
I don't,
constantly.
and I'm building this nest egg, and it's more money than I've ever had legally. Much more than that illegally, but it's the most money I've ever had legally. And it gave me some freedom to make other decisions. But again, the two things, making money was fun, but saving lives was rewarding. I missed Delancey Street. I missed the chaos, the organized chaos of helping drug addicts and ex-felons get their lives together. I truly missed it. There was a hole in my soul, and the money couldn't fill it. It was important at the time because it allowed me to step back, slow down. I came back to Southern California, started doing presentations in all kinds of small 30, 60, 90-day models, and I knew I could go to work for any one of those, but I don't agree with the model in most of them because it's not the Delancey Street way. It's not a therapeutic community, and I don't believe that the outcomes are nearly as good as they should be because it isn't because the programs aren't good. You can't change 27 years of behavior in drug addiction overnight. You just can't. So came back to Southern California, was doing all kinds of just presentations and speaking in these programs, and then a very serendipitous thing happened. I call it a God shot. Charlotte Baker had been in Delancey Street for 38 years. She was right underneath Mimi for a long time. She had left Delancey Street a few years before that. She was kind of like my boss in San Francisco while I ran the LA facility, and she called me and she says, Dave, I'm going to Utah to meet a couple of gentlemen who want to start a replication of Delancey Street. And if I had my phone in my hand, I'd type on the phone like, yeah, right. Again, somebody else wants to do this? And she says, yeah, I'm going to meet them Friday, do some consulting. If they're not crazy, is this something you'd be interested in? I said, not if they're not crazy. They've got to be. She went, she visited on that Friday. She called me Saturday and she says, Dave, they're the right guys. I said, Charlotte, you got to be kidding me. Who are they? You know, they're Joseph, Grenny, Tim, Stay, they're LDS, but they are the right guys, I'm telling you. Do you want to meet them? And I said, absolutely. So about 10 days later, they flew to Los Angeles, and we met at LA Live, which is where the Lakers play, and there's a restaurant there called Fleming's, and we sat down for dinner, and I looked at both of them, and I said, don't ask me a question. Don't you dare. Who in the hell are you? What's the genesis of thought behind this? What makes you think you can, and why would you want to? Because they're not one of us. Why? Make me understand who you are.
Yeah.
And after about an hour, each one of them speaking for about a half hour, I knew I was in the presence of great men. Tim Stay had been an entrepreneur his whole life, immensely successful. Joseph Grenny has written 4 New York Times best-selling books, Crucial Accountability, Crucial Conversations, Change Anything, and The Influencer. And The Influencer is a book that he wrote about 20 years ago. He was going all over the world studying people who were having impact with behavior change. And everybody was telling him, Mimi Silbert, recidivism, Mimi Silbert. So he ran up to San Francisco 20 years ago, interviewed Mimi Silbert in the book The Influencer, which is a New York Times best-selling book. There's a chapter in there about Mimi Silbert. And Joseph thought to himself, someday I want to bring this model to Utah. Now, he has 5 kids of his own. 2 of his kids got into drugs heavily. One of them OD'd. He has a video when he's in the hospital and he's showing his son clinging to his life, and it was really, it's heart-wrenching to watch.
I can imagine.
And I love his son and Joseph. And so anyway, I knew I was in the presence of great men, and we spoke for the next couple hours, and at the end of that interview, they said, are you willing to come to Utah and help us get this started? I said, not if you quit in 6 months when it gets hard. You guys have no idea what you're up against. And they said, let's get started. The next week I was out here, we were looking for a property someplace in the Wasatch Valley. We drove all over the place, and the first building that we saw was the Armstrong Mansion Bed and Breakfast on 7th East and 1st South. The mansion and the little apartment complex next door were owned by the same owners. And Tim and I drove all over the place and looked at other properties over the next few days, and we ended up circling back to that property, and eventually we bought it. And we started right there. So that's kind of how I got to the Other Side Academy. Was just a lifelong journey of drug addiction and criminal behavior that led me to many, many years of prison. And then fortunately I survived that whole lifestyle, and by the grace of God was introduced to Joseph Grenny and Tim Stay, and was given the opportunity to come here and start the Other Side Academy. Now it's fascinating. Here we are, we got 2 guys who have no history, right? They're LDS as they come, and respectfully so. And me, a guy coming from Delancey Street after many years of, you guys, I told you the story already. So now we have to convince the judges and the DAs and the public defenders to send people to us. You want to know how much fun that was? I remember going and we were lucky. We had Jeff Buman, who was the DA in Utah County. He was the chief DA in our corner. There's a tie. He was connected to Joseph Grenny. And he opened a lot of doors, and he got us in front of judges, DAs, public defenders. But I remember sitting in front of a judge once, and we were telling him what we were about to do and who we wanted. And he goes, Mr. Durocher, stop. Let me ask you a question. You mean to tell me I'm supposed to send you my inmates, the same people who were sworn to kill each other in jail and in prison, and they're going to live peacefully under your roof? I said, yeah.
Yeah, he's probably thinking, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said, do you mind telling me how you're going to do it? Yeah. That's what he said. He goes, how are you going to do that? I said, it's easy. We're going to ask him not to. And he looked at me with that dumbfounded look, and I go, Your Honor, when was the last time? You heard my story. Every time I went to jail and prison, I was asked to do the opposite. And that's what we're asked to do when we get incarcerated. When was the last time this population was asked not to do that? And if they don't want to adhere to those rules, then they can stay right where they're at. Besides, most of these people that we're going to ask to help have been through your system over and over and over
Yeah,
again.
what has it done for them?
Right. So let me ask you a question. How well is your way working? And I get it. People need to be held accountable. They need to go to jail. They need to go to prison. But if you send them there 25 times and it's not working, then you're as much as fault as anybody else. There's got to be another way. Delancey Street works. Look at me. Delancey Street works. Don't look at me. Look at the 25,000 people they've graduated successfully back into the community. The model works. The current models aren't working very well. And let me get into, can I get into the current models?
Yeah,
Do we have to do that?
Well,
Yeah.
should we stop for a quick break first and then come back?
Totally up to you.
Yeah, let's do that because the current models. I mean, I have some things to say a little bit
Absolutely.
about that as well. But hey, guys, man, this is a great story. So stay tuned. We're gonna break for a quick commercial, and we will be right back.
How do you start your morning? Start it with a cup of High Point coffee. Because no matter where you go or what you do, it's always better with coffee. High Point Coffee. What's your high point? Located on the corner of 7800 South and Redwood Road in West Jordan. And a special thanks goes out to our partners in Oxford, Mississippi.
This is Gregory, owner of Lift Up Concrete, proudly serving the Wasatch Front for the last 12 years, lifting sunken flatwork for both residential and commercial applications. Only fully trained professionals lifting concrete at your residence with the same quality of material and method used at every commercial job we ever do. Don't replace it, lift it. liftupconcrete.net, 801-792-4535. Contact us at liftupconcrete.net, or if you're looking for a complimentary quote, 801-792-4535. Again, 801-792-4535. Again, this is Gregory, Lift Up Concrete Lifting.
Hello, my friends. This is Brad Neufeld, and I want to thank you for tuning in to the Resilience Talk Network. You can listen to my show, Resilience, every morning, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. On my show, we will be discussing what it takes for you to overcome the day-to-day challenges that all of us face in life, as well as some of the devastating ones that may lead us to feelings of hopelessness and despair. It's my goal to provide you with the tools and skills that you need to overcome anything that is thrown your way. To find out more about my show, visit our website at www.resiliencetalk.com. That's www.resiliencetalk.com. And as always, until we meet again, go for everything that you want in life and make it happen.
I want a chance
Hey everybody, welcome back to the other side of addiction. Before we get Dave talking about the second half of his story here, which has been incredible thus far.
Absolutely
I mean, both
amazing.
Charity and I were just like focused on everything that he's saying here. But hey, we want to say thank you to some incredible businesses and people out there who believe in what we're doing here and believe our cause. So we want to thank High Point Coffee in West Jordan, Lift Up Concrete out of Kaysville, Surf Pro, West Jordan, but again, like I always say, we're thinking Surf Pro from Ogden all the way down to St. George. USARA, thank you, Utah Support Advocates of Recovery Awareness. Thank you so much for supporting us, and I'm looking forward to be a part of their recovery days. Very, very grateful for that. Computer Hospital, guys, thank you so much. Computer Hospital is in Sandy. It's like about 8800 South and State Street. Guys, if you got issues with your computers, this is a place that you can take your computers and know that these guys are going to give you an honest assessment. They're not just going to give you some kind of story just so they can get your money. These guys, Letitia and Kevin, they're just great people. Also want to give a huge shout out to Refiner Productions. Cameron and Austin, guys, thank you so much. The videos that you did here at the studio, they are just great. To launch the first one, and gosh, the remarks I'm getting from people is just, I get emotional sometimes talking about it. It's just been great. And one of our newest sponsorships that have come in is Taffy Town. Taffy Town's been here in Utah for, I think, 100 years. It's a 100-year-old company here out of Salt Lake. And the guys out there they're just great people. Thank you so much again, guys, for your support. And just want to give a huge shout out to Brad Neufeld, too, with Resilience Talk Network. Thank you for opening up your arms, your studio, and believing also in our cause. When Brad and I first met each other face to face, we sat down, and I thought Brad, he leaned back and folded his arms, and I'm like, well, here comes my no. And he goes, I love the idea. I love what you guys are thinking about doing, and let's make it happen. So Brad, thank you so much. All right, Dave, let's go into this next story about what you're thinking or thoughts are about some of these other recovery, because again, we don't want to say anything bad about them because they have helped people.
Absolutely.
And I don't know what their success ratio is. A lot of times I don't think it's as high as what they say it is, but again, I'm not on that other end, so I really don't know, because there are some good programs out there.
Absolutely.
But just share a little bit more of where you were going right before we stopped.
I think the problem today with the current models that we use, normally the 30, 60, 90-day model, is they're too short, and they're built around a funding model. And I've got a lot of friends who work in these with these organizations, and they're incredible human beings. I mean, absolutely incredible human beings, and they're doing everything they can to try to help people.
Absolutely.
But their hands are cuffed or tied because they've only got us for a short period of time. And why do they have us for a short period of time?
Because a lot of times that's all their insurance will pay for.
That's
because
it.
the insurance doesn't want to pay any more than usually
That's
the 6 months or whatever it may be.
So let me give you a scenario of how I see it in my humble opinion. Oftentimes when a guy like me walks into a 30, 60, 90-day model and I sit down for the assessment, the first question they ask me is, how much money do you have? I don't have any. Go die. Now, they don't say go die.
Right.
But if
right.
you're a drug addict and you're using heroin and you go in someplace and you ask for help and you have no money and they say, we can't help you, you're going to go die. In essence, that's what you're doing. Whether you die that day or the next day, you're killing yourself slowly. So I always say, they say go die. Now, if you happen to have mom and dad sitting on both sides of you and they've already mortgaged their home 4 times over.
Which has happened.
It happens all the
so
time.
Much.
Mom
yeah.
and dad are trying to save their kids. They're mortgaging their house, 30 grand here, 50 grand here, 20 grand here, 15 grand here, and they have like $8,000 left to their name. And they're in tears, but they want to save their son or daughter's life, and they hand it over to the program. They count it out. There's $8,000, and basically what happens then is, here's 8 penicillin. Hope that works. Usually the amount of help you get is contingent upon the amount of money you have. Think about how broken the system is. And I don't mean any disrespect to the programs, but that's the model. And you can't refute it and you can't argue it. What I'm saying is 100% accurate. You have money, you're in. You don't, you're not. How much money do you have? That will determine how long you can stay in some cases. And then sooner or later, you have to leave. But the reason why you have to leave is because the funding's run out and they need bed space for the next person to be there. At the Other Side Academy, we are completely free. If you walk through our front door, you take a seat on the bench and we interview you and we accept you, you start that day. We don't hand you a big packet of papers and say, fill out your insurance. It is completely free. We're 2.5 years long, but our average student, about half of our students, are asking to stay a third or a fourth year like I did in Delancey Street. And we don't take any money from the government. City, county, state, federal government, rich mommy and daddy, Medicaid, nothing. Now let's digress a little bit back to the 30, 60, 90-day model. If you do have the money and you're able to self-pay, what happens on day 29? In most cases, Dave, pack your bags, you have to leave tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I'm not ready. Dave, pack your bags, you have to leave tomorrow. But counselor, I'm not ready. Dave, pack your bags, you have to leave tomorrow.
And like you said, they don't have that choice.
They don't.
Yeah.
You know, but that doesn't mean there isn't some programs out there that aren't scholarshiping people in occasionally, but by and large, they wouldn't exist if it wasn't a funding model, if they weren't getting insurance money or self-pay. That's how they fund themselves. And you have to leave usually. If they let everybody stay beyond the funding, then they'd have to close their doors. So what I'm trying to get people to understand is the model. Not the people, because the people are incredible.
Yeah, they're there to help.
Absolutely.
And that's what they want. It's their heart is in it 100%.
Right. But if you tell me an organization, if you do your research and you really dig in, there's no science on the face of the planet. There is no science anywhere that says 30 days is the optimal time. There is no science that says 60 days. Ladies and gentlemen who are listening, do your research. There is nothing anywhere that says 30, 60, 90 day is the right prescribed time. It's just what these insurance companies are willing to pay.
Yeah.
Think about how broken the system is. Now you have to leave because the funding's run out, whether you're ready or not. And if you're not ready, and in most cases most people aren't, what's the first thing they do when they leave? They use again.
Oh, yeah.
And you pick up where you left off. So how many people have left a program after 30 days, picked up heroin, and died? Are we helping more people than we're hurting? Is the question.
Yeah. And it's not the facilities that we're talking about. It's basically the model.
It's the model is broken. Yep. So, you know, you tell me another organization on the face of the planet that can succeed at a 3 to 5% success rate and still be in business today. Why do we continually fund programs? Why do we continually fund organizations that have such a dismal success rate? Now, many people will argue. People will be listening going, that's not right. We say, really? If you really dig in and you really look at the numbers and the outcomes, from what I can gather, from what I've read, it's anywhere from 3 to 7%. That is not very high. Yeah. So, but we keep funding it. We keep funding it. We keep funding it. We keep funding it. We're not changing anything. You know, and at the Other Side Academy, we don't take any money from the government. The government cannot step in and screw this up for us. And really, let's be honest for a second. What the hell does the government know about drug addiction? You have a bunch of people up at the Capitol or in the White House making decisions about drug addicts and criminals who have never been a drug addict and never been a criminal. They are making decisions and policy based on what?
Just the stigma of addiction, basically.
Yeah.
That's
they're just having an addict in society.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do we remove the problem is how it's viewed
that's
from my perspective.
Yeah, and that's because one of the reasons why we're doing this show, because we want to erase that stigma. I mean, the majority of the people who are battling these addictions, they're good people.
Yep.
They really are.
Yep.
They may be lost in a certain area of life, but they're good people. Yeah, there are a few small percentage where it's just whatever's going on. They're just kind of like that few group. But the majority, the ones I've met have just been incredible people who have a lot going for them. So, yeah, it's that stigma.
One of the other things I think that I want to bring up, and it's going to go against traditional belief, if you will. A lot of people think that addiction is a disease. A lot of people truly believe that addiction is a disease. I've been away from the lifestyle now for 16 years, off drugs for 16 years. That means that on any given day, today, tomorrow, the next day. I can wake up and my addiction, my disease will kick in. It'll suck me over to Flacco's house. Everybody knows Flacco's the drug dealer, right? It'll suck me over to Flacco's house and I'll pick up some meth. Dave, what the hell are you doing? You've been clean for 16 years. Why would you do that? Well, I got triggered. Well, let's talk about triggers. Triggers are things that make you think about the old life, blah, blah, blah. Let me ask you a question. Are you good people, everybody in this room? Do bad things happen to you?
Oh, absolutely.
Do you choose heroin or meth to solve your problem?
Neither.
No.
Today.
Yeah.
The point I'm making is
Yeah.
bad things happen to good people every day. But what we do with drug addicts is we make excuses for us. We go, oh, well, Dave, I'll tell someone, I'm 16 years clean, my disease kicked in, I got triggered. I was driving down the street, I saw a big Ford truck in Jennifer's driveway. I used to date Jennifer, I know who owns that truck, and it hurt my... So I used. We just keep telling people that relapse is part of recovery. We're killing when we say relapse is part of recovery, you just told the addict it's okay to relapse. Think about the madness in that. It's not part of recovery. Relapse is part of excuses. If I decide to use again today, it isn't because my disease kicked in. It's because something hurt my feelings, something pissed me off, something got me tipped over, and I did not use my circle of influence to talk it through. You know, and we could argue this all day long, and there are many people that will argue that it is a disease. But here's my argument to that. I'll just use Brad. We'll assume Brad is not a drug addict. He's sitting across from me right now, and Brad's not a drug addict. But I'll tell you what, and you don't have the disease of addiction, right? As it relates to drugs, maybe beef jerky, because that's the bag he's holding up. That was beef jerky, right? Could have been heroin. I don't know. So let's assume he isn't. But if I put heroin in him 3 times a day for the next 30 days, guess what? He's addicted.
He's addicted.
Does he have a disease? He didn't have one for the first 60 years of his life. How old are you, Brad?
57.
He didn't have one for the first 57 years of his life. But if I get him high every day, all of a sudden he has a disease? No, he's addicted to drugs today. But when he stops and he's clean again, does he have a disease? That's an argument we really need to have. But there's so much money in the disease model. Let's go back to the programs. There's so much money in the disease model. So whether it's a disease or not is above my pay grade. That's just my humble opinion.
Yeah.
But Delancey Street, the Other Side Academy, Trosa in North Carolina, Habilitat, all the therapeutic communities that are still remain in this country whose outcomes are through the roof in comparison to these 30, 60, 90-day models that are selling the disease model, right? That it's a disease. Juxtaposed against it's a decision. If I decide to use today, it isn't because my disease kicked in, it's because I decided to use today. When we make drug addicts own their behaviors and own their decisions, we can influence change. When we make excuses for people, I mean, I can go on forever. But at the Other Side Academy, we don't even talk about drugs. Right now, we have over 100 people living on property. Over 100 living there for free. We generate all of our own revenue through our social enterprises. Our moving company, many of you have probably seen the moving company trucks. We're the #1 rated moving company in the entire state of Utah.
Yeah, your moving company just moved my son-in-law's law firm.
There you go.
Yeah, he actually reached out to me and he goes, hey, I just talked to some people from the Other Side of Academy and heard some incredible stories. You need to reach out to them. And that's exactly what I did.
You know, and if you were gonna start a social enterprise ran exclusively by drug addicts and ex-felons, would you start a moving company?
No.
Right, but we do have experience moving your valuables. Only now we do it with permission and we actually deliver it to the other side. But if you called a moving company today, any moving company, you name the moving company, you're probably going to get some people there who have something illegal in that little pocket of their jeans, probably have a beer in the cooler, probably hungover from the night before, and you're paying them $75 an hour and they're on their phone talking to their toxic relationship at home, probably the girlfriend that they're arguing with. I mean, has anybody who's listening today ever met anybody in their entire life who graduated from high school and said, I'm going to go be a mover? That's what I want to do. We fall into those positions by default. Because all they do is they check your pulse. Yep, warm and alive, you're hired. Doesn't matter what your background is, so that's who you get today. The Other Side Academy, you get people who have completely changed. We are the #1 rated moving company in the entire state of Utah. 2018, we won the Ernst & Young Entrepreneurs of the Year with a moving company ran by ex-felons and ex-drug addicts. Who'd have thunk?
Yeah, no kidding.
We have 2 huge thrift stores, one on State Street in Murray and one at 33rd and 13th in Mill Creek. The #1 rated thrift stores in the entire state.
Now, talking thrift stores, I went and visited your thrift store, I think, like the next day after I left the meeting with you and Robin. And gosh, you're going to have to forgive me, but I apologize. I can't remember the gentleman who I sat down with, but he shared his story with me.
Was it Robert?
I think it was Robert. Yeah, so he went out there and he was showing me around the store, telling me how you guys work. I have driven past that I don't know how many times and didn't even realize it was attached, even though it says up there, the other side of Academy. But he introduced me to one of the guys that was working the cash register. And he goes, yeah, this guy here, he goes, he was like the biggest thief here in Utah. I mean, you couldn't turn your back without him stealing anything. Now look, he's running the cash register.
Yeah.
And he goes, we like to laugh and joke about it because really that's who he was. But where your program has now taken him and where he's dedicated himself on this, now the guy's dealing with money and he's doing a business where he could be robbing you blind.
Right.
But that trust there, he built that trust. Yeah.
Let me explain why that's so important. Most of the other programs, when you go there, you've got a room, you're sitting around, your pants are on, your pants are sagging, your hat's on crooked, you have your cell phone with you, you got there on Tuesday, you can contact your girlfriend who you use with on Sunday. So the relationship's already toxic, but the drug addicts have no idea they're in toxic relationships because they don't know what a healthy one looks like. So they have nothing to compare it to. But at the other side of Canada, let me digress. When I was going to jail, who was paying for it?
Us.
Yeah, the taxpayer.
Yeah.
When I was going to prison, who was paying for it?
Us. Yeah.
When I go to a program that I can't afford to pay for myself, who's paying for it?
The insurance or us?
Right. Why in the hell should somebody else pay for my bad decisions? Because, ladies and gentlemen, every single drug addict out there, when they're out there committing crimes, we know the difference between right and wrong. We're choosing wrong. There's no such thing as a crime of necessity. I knew what I was doing was wrong. When I was doing it, I decided to do it anyway, and I knew that prison was the consequence, and every time I got arrested, that's exactly where I belonged. Now let's go to normal programs where you sit around, you be therapized all day. Therapy session. And oftentimes the person in the therapy session isn't a drug addict, isn't an ex-felon, has never lived on the street, never been to jail, never been to prison. So what do you really know about somebody who has? It would be me like, are you a mother?
I am.
Taking delivery of the baby, cutting the umbilical cord, giving the baby its first breath. I can do that with a mother as a doctor 1,000 times and still never be able to tell you what it's like to give birth. So oftentimes you have people trying to help us that have no idea what it's like to be us. I remember many times when I was being therapized or being talked to by a therapist and opining about my problems, and remember, I could see the look on their face when they're going through the Doppel manual and going, oh, Dave said this on page 70, I'm supposed to respond with. It's hard to connect heart to heart, human to human, when you have the issues we do with someone who's never had them.
And I agree
That's
with you
so true.
100% on that because, I mean, for 7 years, I was trying to fix, as she does not like that word, but fix my wife
Right.
and help her. And I remember her telling me hundreds of times, you don't have a frickin' clue what it's like.
That's my point.
Me on the other side, it's like, yes, I do. It took me 7 years to figure it out that she was right. I don't have a clue. Now, it's helping me by doing these shows because I'm getting to hear other people's perspective and hear their stories, and I'm starting to learn a little bit more. But will I fully get it 100%? Because I've never been in those shoes.
Yeah.
But we on the other side, I guess kind of like the therapist, even though they have a manual and we don't. Yeah, I don't know the battles that my wife's going through inside.
Right. And I think people who don't get it don't get that they don't get it. And people who think they get it, sometimes, if they've never been there, are more dangerous than they realize because they just don't get it. Again, not that they're not well-intentioned, because most of them are. But, the best people to help people with PTSD are people with PTSD. The best people to help soldiers who are coming back from war are people who have been through the trauma themselves.
Yeah.
Normally, people who help, when you have the history, when you have the experiential overlap, when you've lived that lifestyle, you're going to be the most effective at helping people. But let's go back to the work component at the Other Side Academy. No money from the government, city, county, state, federal. I mentioned all of that. We have our own social enterprises that generate the revenue. Here's why that's important. I go into jails and I go into prisons. I'm really all over the world, but primarily all over the country, talking to inmates. And one of the things I'll do with inmates is sometimes I'll have a group of 25 in the little church chapel in the jail, and sometimes I'll have 500 in a auditorium. And I'll be talking to them about change, about redemption, about asking for all the things they need to do once they leave to get help. And I'll go, who in here knows how to work? All their hands go up. You're all liars. And I can tell them that because I am them, just farther removed. You're all liars. If you knew how to work, that's where you'd be. You're in jail. That's what you know how to do. So let me ask you, Brad, what do you do for a living? Well, I'm a carpenter. What are you building in your cell today? How about you? What's your name, Steve? What do you do for a living? Well, I'm a mechanic. Changing a transmission today? And how about you, Larry? Oh, well, I'm a culinary artist. The only thing you're doing today is making a top ramen in your cell. Matter of fact, you guys that have these actual trades, these skills, shame on you. Knowing how to work goes far beyond having a skill. Maybe you learned a skill at some point, but if you knew how to work, that's where you'd be. That means getting up, going to work on time, going to break, coming back on time, lunch, coming back on time, afternoon break, coming back on time, punching out on time, having a good attitude, doing what's asked of you, go home, go to bed, rinse and repeat. And doing it over and over and over and over again. That's knowing how to work. Most of this population have had scores of jobs. We can get them all day long. We just can't keep them. Yeah. Knowing how to work goes far beyond the skill. So I tell them all, you're liars. If that's what you knew how to do, that's where the hell you'd be. What you know how to do is go to jail. So let's talk about that. So I have these conversations. So at the Other Side Academy, work is the petri dish. All of them think they know how to work, but when they get there, they can't even get up on time. They go to work, they have a bad attitude. They can't listen to their boss. They don't like their supervisor. They have all these problems that preclude that keep them from actually having a job or keeping one. So none of them know how to work. 100% of them don't. So the social enterprises give them the opportunity to learn. And that's when all the behaviors that led them there come out. And that's where the peer interaction comes into play. We call you on everything. If you have a bad attitude, if you're not listening to your boss, if you're, if you and me, Al, are out on the moving company and you're picking up all the pillows while me and Brad got to pick up the safes and the couches, and you're just him and hawing around and you're just staring at the...
I'm still busy.
Right, yeah. But you're going to come home and you're going to hear about it.
Yeah.
We're going to call you on your behavior. Every little thing. And we're going to talk to you sometimes in a way that a counselor and a therapist can't. Now, oftentimes, if you're in a program, the counselor's going to go, oh, Al,
it's okay.
Stop staring at the women here. Don't pass her notes anymore. But they're not going to kick you out because they need the funding. They're not going to kick you. No, don't. We ask you not to do that. So don't do that here, okay? And you're going to leave the room and laugh about it. At the Other Side Academy, I can't repeat on air how we're going to talk to you. But you're a grown adult, and you knew what was wrong when you were doing it. So what are we supposed to do? Give you another pass? Like you've been given countless times in your whole life? We're not. We're going to get in your southern exposure, and we're going to call you on your behavior on the floor and tell you what a sneaky, manipulating, selfish SOB you are, because you just passed Charity a note. Charity's got 20 years suspended over her head. In that note, you said, "Dear Charity, I really find you attractive. I really like you. If you liked her, you would have left her alone. You don't like her. You're trying to fill that void because you're such a needy little drug addict that you need her to validate you and make you feel good. But if she gets that note and gets all excited and you guys end up in a room in the mansion someplace, for 30 seconds of pleasure, you're both going back to prison. I thought you said you liked her. You don't even know what the word means. Leave her alone." And we're going to talk to you. You're going to get feedback from staff. Then you're going to get feedback from 100 of your peers. And you are going to get bits of bark feed off of you every day for the way you're behaving until we smooth off those rough edges. It is fascinating how well it works when it's a peer-to-peer interaction and not a doctor, a counselor, or a therapist trying to fix the broken person. Ladies and gentlemen, I got news for you. I broke me. The only person that can fix me is me.
Right.
A doctor, counselor, and a therapist can't fix me. It's impossible. They don't fix people. They point out the things you need to do differently, but in most cases, you don't get to practice doing them differently. You're laying on a couch, you're being told what you need to do, and then you go back to your room and you get high. You come back for your next therapy session, go back to your room, have a cigarette, do you get it?
Oh, yeah.
At the Other Side Academy, we are going to be in yours. The whole community is going to know about your behaviors. The entire community knows about everybody's behaviors, and we're all calling each other on our behaviors. And here's the fascinating thing. I'm the executive director. The guy who got there today can drop a slip on me, take me into a room with my peers, and call me on my behavior if I've done something wrong. You tell me, all the listeners, the last time you could take your boss into a room of his peers and call him on the carpet and have a job the next day.
Yeah.
From the top to the bottom, we're all held to the same standard.
Yeah. And I love that. And Robin was showing me that box where you have that suggestion box where people can go in and write.
Yeah.
And she even told me that when you guys do have your group, these things get pulled out and people get called on the carpet. And that's one thing I think all of us in society have a hard time with. I don't think any of us like to be called out because we get defensive. And even though we may not be an addict or a thief or whatever, we're still going to react that same way, right? We don't like to be called out. And to be able to be called out in front of people and have your peers basically tell you, I mean, that's something that helped me on my journey these past 12 years is when I lost my job of 24 years. People who I've known for years and worked with, I thought of myself as a really good person. And I started having some of these people go, yeah, really, we kind of really didn't trust you. And I was like, well, I never stole from you. It's because of the way I manipulated around things. And I'm like, holy hell, I don't want to be that type of person. I didn't realize I was even being that type of person. It took somebody to hurt my frickin' feelings for me to realize it. And that's what got me on that journey of going, okay, I'm going to be somebody completely different.
And you just touched on something that's critical. You said it hurt my feelings. We are so damn concerned today and not hurting people's feelings that we can't tell people the truth.
Yeah.
We've gotten so far away from being able to tell people the truth because we're so concerned about whether or not we're going to offend them. If you listen, two things have to be happening simultaneously in a place like ours, like the Other Side Academy. And this should happen everywhere. Two things should be present: truth and love. If all you ever do is tell somebody the truth, it's going to be considered cruel and mean. If all you ever do is love somebody unconditionally, you're giving them permission to continue with that behavior. But when you bring love and truth together, and I'm interweaving my hands for those who can't see it, when you bring love and truth together, then you can influence change. Both have to be happening simultaneously. Truth alone, cruel and mean. Love alone, permission to continue. Bring them both together. And in today's world, usually, two things are true. The reason why corporate America is so sick, and corporate America is sick. Remember a couple of years ago when Tom Brady was in the Super Bowl? And I love Tom Brady. I'm a football fanatic. I'll be in Tennessee next week watching the Titans play the Cardinals. When he went in at halftime when it was a really cold Super Bowl and he had the equipment manager take air out of the football. And it was Deflategate. That equipment manager was beholden to power, not truth. Wells Fargo opening up millions and millions of fictitious accounts to generate more revenue. They were beholden to power, not truth. The police departments, oftentimes, beholden to power and rank, not truth. Harvey Weinstein having all those young kids marched up to his room. We'll never know how many people's lives were affected because of it. Those people that were bringing them there, beholden to power, not truth. All organizations are beholden to one of two things, power or truth. And almost exclusively, it's power, not truth. And the reason why we need to make changes is because that's the culture we live in. Power, not truth. And the only way we're going to get people to change is to start telling them the truth. And if it hurts your feelings, tough shit.
And it does. I was speaking with somebody yesterday. I won't say who it was, but we were basically talking about my wife. And she was saying how grateful she was on my part that I was being upfront and honest with my wife. Because it's like, addicts have their boundaries. As they're learning, they have their boundaries. Well, damn it, I learned I have frickin' boundaries as well because I would let her run my life, So now that I've had my boundaries and I'm going out and I'm speaking the way I want to speak, and I don't want to hurt her feelings, even though I know I'm going to, it's causing all kinds of shit in my life right now. I mean, literally, it is. Yep. But it was so good to hear this other person go, that's exactly what you need to do.
Yep.
It's you are not wrong doing what you're doing. If it hurts her feelings, oh well, it hurts her feelings.
Yep.
Because doesn't matter whether you're in her life or not, somebody is going to hurt her feelings.
Absolutely.
So,
and the thing with drug addicts is we are the neediest creatures on the face of the planet. We are so needy and feely when we first get to a program. I remember when I got to Delancey Street. I was in and out of prison my whole life, a tough dude in prison. I was a sissy. I was an emotional infant. I took everything, when I got to Delancey Street and got called on my behaviors, I took everything personal. I was a big, soft baby, what I refer to as softer than drugstore cotton. Who cares if I was willing to fight in prison or do whatever? None of that matters. That doesn't make me a man.
Right.
Being emotionally strong makes me a man. Being able to listen to feedback, to be vulnerable, to have the truth told to me, that makes me more of a man than anything I ever did in prison. And drug addicts are just needy, feely people. The tougher you become emotionally, when I say tough, I mean that in a really very respectful way, meaning emotionally resilient. Meaning that no matter what happens in the world, if I come home and my wife is sleeping with somebody else, I'm not going to go use drugs. If I leave the parking lot and I get T-boned in the intersection, I'm not going to go use drugs. That no matter what anybody does to me, that's a reflection of them, not me.
Yeah.
When you can get to a point where you are emotionally strong and no matter what happens around you, you don't cave in, now you're ready. And if you think you can do that in most programs where you're not teaching people to be emotionally resilient, you're gravely mistaken. And the people who think that can happen need more help than I did.
I like that story in your video where you talked about, and I believe it was when you first went to Delancey Street and you had this job of being out in the yard. And this guy had this little dog, and every morning he would let this dog go out, and this dog would come out and poop right where you were working, and how it was affecting you, thinking, who the hell are you to do this to me?
Yeah.
But by the end of it, I mean, you even said, I couldn't tell if the crowd said ooh or anything like that, but you're like, I would be willing to pick it up with my bare hands.
Yeah.
Because what that was teaching you, I mean, your humility,
It was
right?
humility.
Yeah.
Think about this for a second. I was a drug addict for 27 years. I completely destroyed my life. Marriages, didn't raise the kids that I had. I was a sperm donor. I had kids that I kicked down the street for other people to raise. I destroyed everybody in my path. I couldn't begin to count how many lives I negatively affected. So I get to Delancey Street after all those years in prison, and I was full of myself. And Jimmy Jones, who ran the facility, had a little dog named Baxter. And when I got off the first phase, they put me in the backyard. They didn't put me on the moving company. They didn't put me in construction. They shoved me in the backyard where I belonged. Now, I completely disagreed with their decision.
Of course, yeah.
Because don't you know who I think I am? And you could come out on the veranda in Delancey Street in L.A. and you can look down over this grassy area. The Delancey Street in L.A. is a former Hilton hotel. And he would have Baxter go down there and poop in the grass right where I'm working. I wanted to drop kick that dog onto the 101 freeway and go back up those stairs with the rake or the shovel and beat Jimmy senseless.
Yeah.
Those thoughts went through my mind. And it had nothing to do with Jimmy, the dog, or the poop. That's who I had become. I just beat a 22-year prison sentence, and I'm too good to pick up poop and throw it in the trash with a shovel? Man, once I realized what an animal I had become, I'm like, holy cow, who cares? I'd pick it up. If when I was in jail, if they said, Dave, we're going to interview you, we're going to accept you. You're going to beat your 22-year prison sentence, but we're going to put you in landscaping for your whole stay, and you have to pick up dog poop every day. Guess what I would have said?
Yeah.
Get me out of here. Okay,
Yeah.
done.
F
Done.
you, right?
Get more dogs. Bring more dogs. More poop.
Yeah.
But the minute you get there, the selfish part comes out. For me, my selfish part came out. The don't you know who I think I am part. All of those things expose themselves, and that's what I mean by the peer interaction. Then I go to games. Right? My peers are calling me on my behavior. And that's where I was taking stuff personal. I couldn't even sit in a game and listen to them tell me what a egotistical, egomaniacal, self-centered, self-seeking, and I can't use some of the verbiage that we use in games. And eventually it started to sink in, and I started to realize that they're absolutely right. That's who I was when I got to Delancey Street. And that's the beauty of the model, is I got to stay a long time until I was able to fix some of those things. More importantly, see them for the truth.
Yeah. Man, Charity, you got to have something, right? I mean, you've been absorbing all this like crazy.
And relating to it in my own journey, because one of the hardest things is you have this, and I think I shared with you, Al, with me having complex trauma, I didn't just have an ego, I had a super ego on top of it, and having to learn how to calm that down, and it's not easy. I think we recently learned, I have emotional relapses. I had one yesterday, and I went and sat in the canyon in my car last night, and I went, okay, what do I need to do to work through this? Because I had to face myself and accept that, okay, I became reactive versus responsive today. But you're touching on so many things that are just really hitting home. And that ego, transmuting that ego it's such a challenge. It's hard, and it takes time.
Yeah.
It takes time.
I think one of the things I've learned, especially over the past 16 years, is life happens.
Yeah.
Life happens to all of us. I think many of us fall into this, I want to make life easier. I want to make life easier. We get up, we want to make life easier. You're screwed. We are never going to make life easier. It is impossible. Life is not designed to be easy. Life's a challenge. No matter who you are, life's a challenge. But what we can learn to do is make life better. And understand that, you know, it was Thanksgiving night 2015. We had just started. I'm in my Toyota Tacoma. We're at a movie on Thanksgiving evening. I've got 4 of the people in my truck. I'm going down the 15 freeway. A big 4x4 crate fell off a truck. I had to avoid it. Rolled my truck at 75 miles an hour. All of us walked away. Bad things happen. A year later, I'm up in Park City. I'm skiing. I tear up my knee, ACL, completely tore it. Bad things happen. I could go on and on and on. Bad things happen to good people all the time. It's going to happen to everybody who's watching this and listening to this. How are you going to show up? Yeah. Life is 10% what happens to us and 90% how we respond to it. If we go through life trying to make it easier, again, we are screwed. We almost have to accept and invite in all of the stuff that's happening and just take it on like it's a challenge. All the noise and all the chaos and all the things that are in our lives, separate them all and solve each one independently and just keep solving along the way, and we make life better, not easier.
Yeah. Well, and I agree with that 100%. So like we have taken the news completely out of our lives. I mean, for years, it's like we got so wrapped up with everything that was going on in the world. I noticed that it was affecting my everyday life. So I had to open my vision a little bit more and go, okay, I'm gonna pull myself out of this negativity because I don't want this negativity. We have let go of certain friendships that we've had because it was drawing us in a place. Yeah. Life is tough enough as it is. I mean, life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. Because everything you went through, Dave, in your life, I mean, would you ever thought you'd be in this position where you're at right now? I mean, you said earlier in the show, you were pretty much looking at you're going to spend the rest of your life in and out of prison, right? Yeah. Everything that I've gone through the past 7 years, did I ever think I was going to be sitting here in a chair interviewing people who's had, here I think my life was hell, and then listening to somebody else going, oh crap, mine was just like a gnat compared to this person's. I mean, everything that we go through, bad stuff, good stuff, I really truly believe it's leading us to that next step in life. Because if you do look back and you look at all the crazy shit that's happened in your life or the negativity that's happened in your life, if you really, really dig down and think and look at it, there's something good that happened from it. It's just not all negativity. There's something there if you look. I was listening to a podcast once, and somebody was talking about that, you know, if you were coming home from work and you had to hurry and get home to take your kid to a soccer game or whatever, and you got this flat tire, you know, you're all pissed off and you're ticked, and you change your tire and you get home and you're dirty and you're bitching and you're all upset. That person said, you know what, that flat tire may have just saved your life, because you could have been in that car accident that was just down the road another 3 miles if you wouldn't have got that flat tire.
Let me stop you right there.
Okay.
It's fascinating that you say that. That night on the 15 freeway, when I got in that rollover accident, that truck rolled and rolled and rolled, and we landed on all 4 wheels. We all walked away from it. Joseph Grenny lived there in Provo. He was the first person I called. He came back, and we were trying to get some of the students that were in my truck back to the facility where I was dealing with the ambulance and, you know, the police and the report. And a family, a husband, wife, and 2 children walked up to Joseph and I, and the wife says to me, she says, I just want to thank you. It's 10:30 at night, it's freezing cold, it's windy, and I'm looking at her and I go, what do you mean? She says, if you didn't avoid that car in front of, she explained what I did when I rolled She goes, my kids were not seat belted in. If you didn't take that role when you did, I don't remember how she said it word for word, but Joseph and I were both standing there, and I'm looking at her like, you got to be kidding me. She goes, my kids would be dead. That's exactly what you just said. If you didn't get that flat tire, you don't know if you'd have been in the accident. If I didn't take that role, that family stopped to help us, and she said thank you for me taking the role, because it let them know about what was about to happen, and they were able to avoid it. Crazy stuff like that happens. So you have to look at everything in that light.
Yeah.
Everything has a silver lining.
Yeah, and it's hard to, because I think that's how society has kind of molded us. I love the whole concept that you're doing, because it's just not for the people that are coming to the other side of Academy. Basically, it's freaking life. It's preparing them for life in general. That I think it's all of us should go through that damn 2-year program, because really it's helping us. It's helping us all, because I've had to pull back these past 12 years and really do some soul searching. And I know Charity has pulled back, and she's been working on really doing some soul searching, and that was also kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to ask her to, she's going to be a guest here in the next couple of weeks, but one of the reasons why I wanted to ask her to come on the show as a co-host with her, and I'm admitting to it right now, but with her to have a chance to come out and just to hopefully help her on her side as well. But now I can't even remember where I was going with this now, but
It's just that everybody needs to go through an experience. Like
we all need to go through it, and all of us. I had somebody reach out to me on social media, and they're going, "Gosh, man, we're really proud of you. It looks like you really got life. Life is great right now." And I'm thinking, man, how deceiving is social media? Because no, life is still freaking a bitch.
Yeah.
It's still tough.
Yeah.
I'm still scraping and scratching, and I'm doing stuff right now that I really don't want to do, but I have to do it to keep me afloat while I'm doing other things.
Yeah.
And it's like, people, open your frickin' eyes, I mean, everybody's struggling out there.
Yep.
And who are we to sit there and judge? And I think I said that in one of my videos, that who are us to judge what somebody else is going through when you really need to be looking at your own damn life, because yours isn't pretty either. You're just pretending to put on this persona that you want people to look at you like, oh my gosh, well, the Jones, man, they got it made. Do they really? So
it's so interesting how social media, it kind of feeds that too. It feeds this persona, this image that we have, and oh well, look, everything's so great. And one of my favorite memes is a spirituality meme, and it says, other spiritual people, oh, I need to get on your level, I just can't wait to be where you are. And then it says me on my spiritual level, like glasses are crooked, faces all wonky. I laugh every time, because I've heard people say that, oh wow, you're doing amazing. I'm like, oh,
if you only knew.
You have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. I'm a hot mess. But it does, and I think we over-glorify looking good. And I'm so glad I can see that now, because I'm like, wow, I really tried to play the part. I wore so many masks. But now sometimes it's dirty and dark and heavy, and you're on your knees crying out to something higher than yourself, begging for mercy. Help me change this. And it's not all roses.
Well, and I like how you said that, Charity, wearing the mask. When we're wearing the mask, we ain't doing ourselves any damn justice.
No.
And I wore the mask for a long time, hiding my wife's addiction. And people who know me really well, they kind of saw behind the mask just a little bit, going, hey man, there's something wrong with you, because you just don't seem like the same person. I'm like, oh no, everything's freaking great, you know. So I think we do hurt ourselves by putting that mask on. We really need to own up to our own issues a lot. And again, life is going to happen to us. And I like that story. I believe the gentleman's name was Leo, the guy that wanted to come to the other side of Academy. And you told him no when you first spoke to him, but yet you watched this guy leave come back and get knocking on your door. Wasn't this a guy that had OD'd like the night before?
Yeah.
And he basically finally just broke down and said, look, I need your help. He finally took that mask off.
Yep.
And
when we interviewed him, he was a smart ass. He was pompous. He was arrogant. And I told him, no, you're not ready. And he left the front door and he walked around the side of the house and he sat on the curb for about 10 minutes. And then he got up and he walked back around the house and he was knocking on the window. And I went over there and I opened the door and I go, what's up? He goes, Dave, I am going to die. I OD'd last night. My friend had to revive me. If you don't accept me, I'm going to die. I said, come back inside, take a seat on the bench. And I re-interviewed him. Second interview, only in 45 minutes later, was completely different than the first interview. I think he realized where he went wrong in that first interview, and I accepted him. And I'll never forget him coming back and knocking on that window, because when I interviewed for Delancey Street twice. If you listen to the TED Talk, I interviewed for Delancey Street before my 10-year prison sentence, and they didn't take me.
Right.
Because in that interview, all I talked about was the drugs, the guns, the women, the chaos, the mayhem, all of the things that I thought I was. That interviewer left me right there in jail where I belonged, and he saved my life and not accepted me. I needed to go do that 4th prison term. My second interview, I remember getting up and barely being able to touch the glass and knocking on the glass as the interviewer was walking away, with tears running down my face, begging for help, begging him for a chance. That was the difference between the 2 interviews, and that was the difference for Leo.
Yeah, that's great. This is some really good stuff, guys. We're gonna stop here for another quick break, and we'll be right back.
Hi, this is Tamara K. Anderson, and I want to share something special with you. When our son Nathan was diagnosed with autism, I felt like the life we had expected for him was ripped away, and with it, my own heart shattered as well. It's very common for families to feel anger, pain, confusion, and anxiety when a child is diagnosed. This is where my book, Normal for Me, comes into play. It shares my story of learning to replace my pain with acceptance, peace, joy, and hope. Normal for Me has helped change many lives, and I'd like to give this book to as many families as possible. We've put together something I think is really special. My friends and listeners can order copies of my book at a significantly discounted price, and we will send them to families who have just had a child diagnosed with autism or another special needs diagnosis. We will put your name inside the cover so they will know someone out there loves them and wants to help. I will also sign each copy. You can order as little as 1 or as many as hundreds to be shared with others. So go to my website, tamarakanderson.com, and visit the store section for more information and to place your order. You can bless the lives of many families by sending them hope, love, and peace. Check it out today at tamarakanderson.com and help me spread hope to the world.
Welcome to the Resilience Talk Network. My name is Jay Walter, and I'm the host of Rebuilding, heard every weekday night from 6 to 7 p.m. You can listen in and learn how to face your fears, overcome obstacles, and make dreams a reality. So listen every weekday night from 6 to 7 p.m. right here on the Resilience Talk Network.
Hey everybody, welcome back to The Other Side of Addiction. Man, this has been an incredible show. Love all the information that's being shared. And Dave, again, thank you for your time. So before we get started, I've got some more sponsors I want to thank. I want to thank I Am Power, Ninja Real Estate. Thank you guys so much. They're the ones that really helped us too with get some of these videos out. Fitness Realty. Thank you guys so much. We also got Tatiana Rose from Advanced Business Books. Thank you guys. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for all your support and believing in what we are doing. So, during break, we were talking about putting money on the books, and you're like, Al, do we have time to touch on this? Yes, we have time because I think it's very important that we share this. So
I don't think there's anything more poignant or critical than this piece. Drug addicts, everybody they know, I love you, 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 I love you. Fascinating. We use that's the most overused word in the English dictionary, especially with drug addicts. Now, if I'm in jail and prison, hey, Al, love you, bro.
Yeah.
Love you, bro.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to go into a riot. Here's a knife. Go cut that person. Is that how you treat somebody you love?
Yeah.
I could go on and on for hours about the definition of love, and most people don't even understand the definition. The true definition of love is sacrifice. If there was one word that describes love, it's sacrifice. So when people are using the word, I love you, when was the last time you sacrificed for them? It's such an overused word. And drug addicts completely manipulate the word and the meaning. So I'm a drug addict for years. I'm going in and out of jail and prison. And who's the first person I call? Who are the first people I call when I get incarcerated? Mom and Dad.
Mom and Dad, yeah.
Mommy and
Yeah.
Daddy. First people I call is Mommy and Daddy. They always take the collect call. I whine and I cry. I'm busted again. I need money on my books. Guess who comes and puts money on my books? Mom and Dad. They're enabling me. And I know they will, so I use them. And at the end of every phone call, love you, love you, love you. Oh, don't forget to put the money on my books.
Yeah.
And then I get to prison, and you can get 30-pound packages every quarter. Every phone call, love you, love you. But every time I get out of jail or I get out of prison, I don't go home to my mom and dad. I go straight to this weird the drug addict's house or the girl or whoever. It's never back home. I say I love them, but it's always to get something, and they're constantly enabling me and constantly trying to take care of me because they love me. They're sacrificing for me. And if I'm a grown man and I'm 30 or 35 years old and I'm making decisions that are going to put me in jail or prison, why in the hell should someone put money on my books? I should go hungry. I should go without coffee. I should go without... they feed you enough for you to survive, but not enough to keep you from being hungry. But stop going if you don't like it. But as long as parents keep putting money on their books for their kids, they're going to keep enabling them.
Yeah.
Visits. They would come visit me at every jail and every prison. And at the end of the visit, I love you. Don't forget to put money on the books on the way out. Or if you have kids, and this is a whole nother topic. People ask me, they come from all over. Next week I'm having a summit at the Other Side Academy, 4 days long. Organizations from all over the world, Australia, Italy,
Wow.
all over the country are coming to learn and to teach. And people ask me all the time, how do we break the cycle? Separate the drug addict from their kids. Now, in jail and prison, you can bring your kids there. And sometimes I ask people during the interview to come to the Other Side Academy if they love their kids. I'm looking at a guy named Al who's been arrested 33 times, been to prison 4 times. You write us a letter, I go there, do you have kids? Yeah, I got kids. Do you love them? Yeah, I love them. You love your kids? Yeah. You've been to jail 33 times, you don't even have them. You kicked them down the street for somebody else to raise. Don't tell me you love your kids. If you loved your kids, if this is love to you, how the hell would you treat them if you hated them? You don't even have possession of them, like I didn't. I had 3 boys. They're all in their late 30s now. I kicked them down the street for other people to raise. But 20 years ago, if you'd asked me if I loved them, guess what I would have said?
Oh, hell yeah.
Now they'll go to jail. So sometimes in the interview, they tell me I'm crazy. That's fine. Maybe I am, but you don't get to have that conversation with me because you ain't interviewing me. Whether I am or not, it's irrelevant. But let's just go, Al, just stay here in jail. No problem. You love your kids, Father of the Year. But let me ask you one more question. Do you have your kids come visit you in jail? Oftentimes they say yes. You bring your kids to jail. Al, you bring your kids to this effing place. You bring them, you subject them to this. Then little Bobby goes to school on Monday and he tells his friends how cool his daddy is. Fast forward the tape 10 years, where's he end up?
Same place you're
I
sitting.
thought you loved him.
Yeah.
You don't bring your kids to jail or prison because it's good for them. You bring your kids to jail or prison because it makes you feel good. But guess who brought the kids to jail or prison? The mom. So as the kids are there and you're trying to get the kids out of the way so you can pay attention to mom, right? Because you want to make sure mom's not cheating on you. She's not with
Right.
somebody else. So the kid, you're not paying attention to the kids. You're paying attention to baby's mama, right? And you're trying to make sure you can keep her close because how dare you cheat on me while I do my 4 years, right?
Yeah.
That's what we do. And then at the end of the visit, guess what we ask baby's mama to do? Don't forget to put the money on my books. She's got 3 kids with her. All the money she's making should go towards those kids. But I need you to put it on my books. Because I love you. It is sickening what we do in this country. Grown adults making decisions to go to jail and prison. There is very few innocent, I'm not saying there isn't any, but very few. Every time I went to jail or prison, That's exactly where I belonged. That is exactly what I deserved to get. Every time I went to prison, it kept community safe from me. It probably saved my life on more occasions than one. And nobody should have put money on my books. Nobody should have sent me packages. Nobody should have came to visit me. If I cared about them, I wouldn't have been making the decisions that I was making to go to prison. But we don't want to do that in this country. We want to make excuses for drug addicts. Oh my God, it's not their fault. They've got a disease. It's not their fault. Those are crimes of, my goodness, you wonder why things are getting worse and not better, because we're not holding people accountable. When I start going to jail and I start going to prison and mom and dad stopped visiting and they stopped taking my calls and they stopped sending me stamps and paper and stopped putting money on my books, guess what? When I would call home and my dad wouldn't take my call anymore, oh my God, I've lost my family now. Now I've lost, the girlfriends, all of the girlfriends. I've lost all the money I made. I've lost my family. I've lost everything. Guess what that forces me to do?
Choose to do something different.
But man, make sure that the drug addict knows the safety net's there. We'll put money on your books. We'll take care of you. When you get out, you can come home. All of those things.
Yeah.
You're helping to kill us.
And touching base on that, us on the other side, that's what, really we don't get, because we have somebody that we care about, that we do love, and we want to try to help them the best we can. And that's all we know.
I know.
I went to Al-Anon, and I wasn't, and again, I'm not knocking Al-Anon, and I've said this on the shows many times, because it has helped a lot of people. It wasn't a fit for me. We just don't get it. We don't realize what we are doing, that we think we're helping and we're not. It was so hard for me as the person on the other side, that when I would get home, and I finally got to that point in my life where if I got home and she was wasted, my wife was wasted, it's like, pack a bag and get the hell out of here. Scared to death, thinking she's going to go out there, she can hardly walk, she could run across the wrong person, they could grab her, throw her in a van or a vehicle or wherever, may never see her again, they could rape the hell out of her as many times. She's so wasted, how the hell would she know?
Right.
How heartbreaking. And many times when I kicked her out, I'd lay in bed at night, can't fall asleep, because I'm scared to death, thinking, what the hell's happening to her out there? I just kicked this gal that's 5'2", weighs 112 pounds, and she's out there on the frickin' street drunk as hell. No way she could defend herself, It's the fear, but also that's really when I was doing the most help. I felt after a certain amount of time, because I wasn't allowing her to use those manipulating tricks on me. Even the times when she would drink, and I'm like, let's go get you help, and she couldn't get the liquor anymore, and she's like, I'm going to die. Now, with alcohol, that is one thing that if you don't go through detox, it can kill you, and she would use that. You'd have to go buy me a bottle. You got to go buy me a bottle, because I'm going to die. And constantly I'm getting that thrown out at me. So it is hard for us on that other side not to lend that hand or to put the money on the books. But it's something we really need to flip and do, right?
Let me put it to you like this. Would you allow a stranger who is a heroin addict in your house to use heroin?
No, absolutely
Then why
not.
would you allow a family member? Boundaries need to be universal. Boundaries aren't for other people. They're for me. They're for you. When I set boundaries, or when you set boundaries, they're for you. So if you're not going to allow a stranger to do it, why would you allow a family member to do it?
Yeah.
Boundaries need to be universal. The parents who are supporting their kids in prison, would you put money on a stranger's book? No. Then why would you put them on your son's book?
Yeah.
Because you're enabling. You're not helping us when you're supporting us when we're making bad decisions. But you feel guilty about something you've done that you think you're responsible for, and I get all that. Feel guilty, that's fine. Still stop enabling us.
Yeah.
If you're not going to do it with strangers, why would you do it with people that you claim you care about?
And that is very well put. I like how you put that. And we were talking during one of our breaks about boundaries, because those who are listening, who are on the other side, we have to have our boundaries too. You have to set them, and you have to hold by it. You can't vary. If you vary off a 16th, they're going to see it, and you're going to be right back into the trap.
Give us an inch, we'll grab the whole yardstick.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We'll take you miles.
Yeah. Very well put. I got goosebumps because this is such great information. So before we call this a show, is there anything else? I mean, Charity, you have questions. Dave, is there anything else that you feel like we really need to get out there?
For those who are listening that have loved ones, family, friends, people directly related to you, indirectly, by extension, whatever that looks like, there needs to be a spectrum of care. There needs to be the 30, 60, 90-day models for the people who are just starting.
Yeah.
I think it works best for.
Okay.
But for those who the 30, 60, 90-day models haven't worked for, there's two ways that you can come to the Other Side Academy. You can literally go to our facility, take a seat on the bench. We will interview you that day. If we accept you, you start that day. If the person's incarcerated, they're in the county jail fighting their case, pre-sentence. If they're in prison, they have to finish their sentence. But if they're in the county jail, Salt Lake County Jail, Utah County Jail, Davis, anywhere in the state, or the country for that matter. I've got about 10 different states being represented now at the Other Side Academy. If they're fighting their case, they're in jail, they write us a letter, we'll go to the jail, we'll interview them. If we accept them, they get a letter of acceptance that they can take to their LDA, prosecutor, and their judge. Just know there's another model out there that is long, that is free, that takes no money from the government, and that works really, really well. Look us up online. Go to theothersideacademy.com. Look at the videos. Read all the FAQs. It'll answer a lot of your questions. And if you have a family member or friends or whoever might need help, reach out.
That is cool.
I just want people to know that we're there.
And Dave, does this include, help for alcoholism? And
Absolutely.
okay.
Yep.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
Well, Dave, again, thank you so much for your time. The information that you shared today was just, I'm going to use my favorite word, just phenomenal. Really, this is definitely, I'm grateful for all our shows and all our guests, but yeah, this was great. I really do appreciate your time. And Robin, who, now is Robin your assistant?
Robin is a staff member now.
Okay, a staff member. So her and I spoke a little bit too, and we're definitely want to have her on the show because she has got an incredible story.
Yes, she does.
As well. I was hoping that she could be with us, and our, I just want to say too, because I know she just lost her grandmother, and we want to send out our thoughts and prayers to her and her family. I've lost all my grandparents now, and I was lucky enough to have them halfway through my life, so I can feel her pain. But Dave, again, thank you, and let us know if there's anything we can do to help the Other Side of Academy.
Yes. Because
I think your program is a great program. The day you and I sat down and we met for the first time, got to learn a little bit more about you, and we ended up finding out you know some of the people that I know just since I've got involved with this. And there are great programs out there, but again, there may be some, like with us on the other side of the academy, or the other side of addiction, maybe Al-Anon won't work for you, but there are other places that you can go to get the support that you need. So,
yeah. Al, thank you. Charity, thank you.
Hey,
it's an honor being on the show.
Thank you. Well, guys, we're going to leave you with this. Remember, addiction is giving up everything for one thing. Recovery is giving up one thing for everything. Take care, everybody.